Moms who know do less so they can focus on what matters most, taking care of themselves, their families, and living their God-given purpose. Moms who know are simplifying motherhood and focusing on the little things they can do that grow to have a huge impact. You are connecting with your family, your true self, and your purpose. You are a mom who knows. Hello and welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and today we are going to listen to a presentation from the Purpose Project Summit. This presentation really stood out to me when I heard it because the title alone, she titled it Finding Purpose in the Mundane. And as I listened, it just really resonated with me because as moms, a lot of what we do is menial. It's mundane. It's, the same thing over and over, and it can feel a little less than purposeful. Yet in this presentation, Christine really explains how she came to find purpose even in those small things. It's a lesson that we all need so much. And I know for me, I need to be reminded of it over and over because sometimes when you're in the thick of it and you're doing it every day, it just doesn't feel that purposeful. Now, this presentation is part of a summit called the Purpose Project. The Purpose Project has over 30 presenters all talking about finding their purpose, sharing their stories, really giving you actionable tips on how to find and live your purpose. You can get access to that by purchasing the summit in its entirety at momswhoknowpodcast.com/summit. Go there, get all the details, see who all the presenters are, check out all of these amazing presentations, and let's get to this awesome presentation with Christine Keys.
Hey there, I am Christine. I am a stay-at-home mama to 3 little ones. I'm also a blogger, and in my pre-mommy life, I was a registered nurse. And I want to talk to you today about finding purpose in the mundane. This is something that I've had to work on and continue working on while I am raising my children. And I think it's a thing that is not talked about enough. And so I want to just sit down and have a heart-to-heart and a chat with you and hopefully give you some encouragement and some tips to help you find purpose in the mundane. Like I said, I'm a blogger. I run a parenting blog. I've been running that for about 3 years now, and I have more recently started a couple of other blogs. I have one about how to blog and make money as a stay-at-home mom, and then also a very recent and new one, they call it my 4th child, is my homeschooling blog because we're homeschooling now. My son's going to be 5 in a couple of weeks, and we've started on the homeschool journey. So that is something that is very busy. It's something I love, but again, it can fall into that category of mundane sometimes. And so this is hopefully a topic that is going to be helpful to you. And whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a working mom, whether, even if you're not a mom, I think there's just stuff in life that's hard, that seems mundane, and you wonder where the heck is your purpose in it all. So this one I want to sit and chat to you about. So let's get talking. I've got a few points that I'm going to cover, but I also want this to be more chit-chatty and casual. But I want you to walk away with something that you can actually, apply to your life and find helpful and encouraging. So all of that to say, let's get chatting. So the first thing that I personally have found you need to know before you can find your purpose is to know your worth. And this is something that I have struggled with on and off throughout my entire life. But there have been moments in my life where it has been particularly challenging. And the 2 moments I can think of is one when I was a teenager, like going from that teenage to young adult phase, finding my worth, knowing my worth, and understanding what that was, because it makes a huge difference. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then the other moment was after the birth of my 2nd child. And I did have some postnatal depression with her. And I'm sure that impacted how I was feeling at the time. But I also really questioned my worth at that stage and who I was, how I fit in, and what on earth I was doing with life. Because I called it all into question during those times. And they were pivotal moments in my life that made a huge difference. So for me personally, I'm a Christian and I find my worth in what Christ says I am. But I haven't always done that. It's great in theory to know that, to see yourself as a child of God and somebody who is called to do specific things to serve him, to honor him, that you are precious, that he knows the number of every hair that you have on your head, and he knows you so intimately, and he loves you, and he's designed you for a very specific calling. You can know that in theory, but to know that in your heart and to live it out, it's two different things. And so I would challenge you, whatever your beliefs are, to find your worth, to know your worth. Where do you get your worth from? Because those two times where I really struggled in my life were not times where I was finding my worth in God and what God said my worth was. I was finding it in what society said my worth was. And the problem with that is that society changes over time. Once upon a time, stay-at-home mothers who looked after their children full-time were considered very important. It was a very important calling. Nowadays, not necessarily. Like, people will say that, but society in general does not portray that. And even as a young adult, when I was struggling, I knew that I wanted to get married and have children. And that wasn't something that society was necessarily promoting. It was all about career and advancement in that area. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But if you're not desiring those and you're not wanting those, you can think that what you want is not worthy. And I just want to be here to dispel that myth that just because you want something that's different from the norm doesn't mean that your wants and you as a person are not worthy. It's just not true. But if you can't find your worth, if you can't understand your worth, then you're not going to find your purpose, because your purpose, they're linked together. And you're really going to struggle if you're sitting there thinking that what you're pursuing isn't worthy. So find your worth. Know your worth and remind yourself of it all of the time, because there are going to be days where you're going to be like, I'm not good enough for this. Is this what I should be doing? Am I contributing? You're going to question yourself. So if you can find that worthiness, if you can find calm in it and peace in it, then it will really, really help you with finding your purpose. In fact, it just is like a natural progression. And once I stopped beating myself up for not doing all the things and being busy doing all the things and advancing a career while also raising children. And again, I'm not saying that those things are wrong, but sometimes if you're not doing those things, you feel like you're not doing enough. Society is putting this massive pressure on women in general, people in general. I'm not going to exclude men from this because I do think men feel this as well, but just pressure to be doing everything. And I think while feminism has been incredible for giving women rights that we didn't have before, sometimes what can happen is because now we have all of the choices, we feel like we have to pursue all of them. And that's just not true. There is no trophy for being the busiest person. There's no trophy for getting burnt out and just being absolutely exhausted and just not being able to function. There's no trophy for that. It's not something to be proud of and something to pursue. It's okay to not do all the things. It's okay to not be running around doing activities all the time. It's okay not to have a side hustle. I mean, so many mamas, stay-at-home mamas, have something that they're doing from home now. I do, but it's okay if you don't. It's okay if all that you're doing is being at home with your children and raising them. That in and of itself is huge. It's a big deal. And we've just moved away from that. And so just know that you are worthy, even if you're not pursuing a career, even if you're not a mother and you are pursuing a career, that's okay too. You're worthy in that. And your person is important in this world. What you're doing is important. So I get on a big soapbox and keep talking about that. But I just want you to really, really hear that, because if you can't find that, you're not going to find purpose. So let's talk about the next thing, because now we want to talk about actually finding purpose. And I'm specifically going to be talking about the mundane, and I'm talking from my point of view because that's all I can talk from. I can't talk about my neighbor and what they're doing or whatever else. I am a stay-at-home mom. I do work from home, but the majority of my day consists of caring for my children. And I can tell you that the majority of my day is not made up of grand gestures and big important milestones. It's made up of mundane, menial tasks, okay? And I think one of the most important things that keeps me focused on my purpose is focusing on the big picture. Because when you focus in on the little things, you can easily feel like what you're doing has no purpose, or you can question your purpose. And so I think one of the most important things you can do is stand back and look at the big picture. What is it that you are trying to achieve? Whatever that is, that's what you need to keep at the forefront of your mind. I have had 3 babies. I had them in 4 years, and it was busy. My body was exhausted. I'm only just starting to feel like myself again. My youngest is 17 months old. It's been busy. And there have been days when I have sat there and cried and thought, what did I do? Why did I have 3 babies so close in age? Like, what am I doing here? And I think those feelings are normal, but that's why it's so important to see the big picture. Because for me, my purpose is to raise those babies to be world changers. And they don't have to be world changers as in like famous politicians and world leaders and things like that. Sometimes it's just raising them to be kind to other people. And that can look like breaking up endless fights throughout the day between siblings and teaching them to be kind and doing it over and over again. The repetitiveness of it all can just be completely exhausting. But when I look at the big picture and what I'm trying to achieve, it makes sense. So looking at it with like tunnel vision can make it really hard. But if you have that big picture view, that big goal that you're working towards, it will really, really help you with finding your purpose in the mundane and the everyday tasks. And my purpose, like I said, is to raise my children to be world changers. And for me, that's to raise them to love people as God loves us, to raise them to want to serve him and to want to give their lives to him, to pursue his work and to just honor him and glorify him. And that sounds big and scary as well when you look at it in the big picture, but it's broken down into little tasks. And, there's that quote about how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's exactly what parenting is and exactly what raising children is. And those bites can look menial and mundane, but there is purpose in every single one. So just find your big picture item, whatever that may be, and focus on that because that really will help you to find your purpose. So then I also want to talk about those smaller things. Seeing your purpose in the little things, in the mundane things, in wiping your kids' butt for like the 15th time in a day because I have 3 kids. They at one point were like 3 and under and we're all still in pull-ups or diapers of some kind. And there was a lot. And it can feel sometimes just soul destroying when you're just being called from all areas of the house from one child or another. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I just feel like a maid, a servant. And it's hard. And there's nothing wrong with saying it's hard. It's not complaining. There's a big difference between complaining and just admitting that something is challenging and difficult. And I'm not going to lie to you, making a meal when you're tired at the end of the day and then serving it up and everyone turns their noses up to it. It's really hard. It's really frustrating. And breaking up those sibling fights that seem never ending, like why can't you just get on and just play with each other and love each other? You can sit there and think, what the heck am I doing? This is making no difference. I mean, I was a nurse before I became a mother, and now I'm not out there helping save lives and, help people with their health and their well-being. I'm at home with my children, and it can be very easy to sit here and think, well, what I'm doing is not that important. I'm basically just a daycare, but that's not true. I am molding little minds, little souls, little hearts, and what you're doing as a mother at home is a big deal. We're raising the next generation. We're raising the people who are going to make a difference to this world in a negative way or a positive way. That's up to us. It's a big responsibility, but I just don't want you to take your role as something that's not important because it is. You have great purpose. Something that really made me step back and understand a better way to look at those smaller things that seem really mundane and menial was to realize that love is not a feeling, it's an action. And every time you're changing a diaper, you're cleaning up spilt milk, you're doing another load of laundry and adding it to the Mount Kilimanjaro sitting somewhere else of clean washing, you are performing an act of love. Love doesn't necessarily give you butterflies. It is something that you have to work on every single day. And we apply this to both our children and to our spouses. I mean, there's going to be times when you don't feel like loving your spouse, but you get up and you do it anyway, because that's what true love is. And it's true in your children as well. And what greater purpose is there than to love somebody and to show them love? That is what, I mean, it's incredible that we get the privilege to do that. And it doesn't always feel good. And that's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you get up and you don't want to clean up the mess. It's okay if you get up to the crying baby and you feel resentful that they're waking you up. The point is you do it anyway, and your children will feel that, and it will make a big difference as they grow up. So realize that the small things, the menial things, those are the most important ones because they stack up real fast. And when you're just performing those acts of love, it's going to make a huge impact on the people around you. So for me, that has changed my mindset so much when I'm just like exhausted and I'm like, what is the point in doing this? I'm exhausted. I feel like a servant. It's okay. I'm loving my family and it will pay off. There will be fruits for your labor. I promise. The next thing I want to talk about is just refreshing and recharging, because we can talk about having purpose and knowing our purpose, but that doesn't negate our need for rest and the fact that you just cannot pour from an empty cup. Like, you need to be taking care of yourself. And this is another thing that I often will get up on my soapbox about, because self-care is so misrepresented. It's not manicures and, pedicures and back massages and long baths, although those can all help with self-care. Self-care is something that you do every single day, throughout the day. It's stepping out of a room when you are completely overwhelmed and you want to snap at your children. It's getting up a little bit earlier so you can have 5 minutes to recharge your mind before your children wake up in the morning. It is enforcing rest time in the afternoon for your children so that you can have a chance to recharge. They can have a chance to recharge. It's little things that don't look that life-changing, but they really do make a massive difference. And if we're pursuing our purpose and we want to find our purpose, we need to be taking care of ourselves as women, because if you're not, you're going to get bogged down and you're not going to be able to find your purpose in anything, because all you're going to be thinking about is, when can I rest? When can I get away from everyone so I can just rest? And I know this because I've been there. I know what that feels like, to just feel like you can't stand another person asking you for something of yourself because you can't give anymore. So do yourself and your entire family a favor by putting into practice self-care every single day. Whatever that looks like for you, it's going to look different for every single person. I'm an introvert, so the way that I recharge is just by getting away from everyone and everything. And I need to do that, whether it's little increments throughout the day or bigger chunks. I just have to do that. If you're an extrovert, that might mean catching up with friends. It might mean outings and getting out the house. Whatever it is, find what it is for you and focus on that so that you can keep focused on your purpose and know what it is. Otherwise, like I said, you're just going to be exhausted. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is just revisiting point 1 and point 2. On those days when you're just really struggling and you're like, what am I doing here? Why am I important? Know your worth and look at the big picture. Write it down and put it somewhere if you need to. Find Bible verses that just speak to your heart and remind you of how important you are and what your worth is in Christ's eyes. Find great quotes that you feel speak to your heart and put them in places where you're going to look at them often. But it's easy to fall into those holes of just self-pity and, feeling lost. I think especially as mums, when we've got like hormones racing all over the place, where we're having babies and then postpartum and, pregnancy, it's easy for those things to affect how we're feeling and to affect our mood and everything. And we can only control those to an extent, but we can often control our minds by putting good things into them. So that's why I love to have things around my house where I often read things. If you find stuff on social media triggering or difficult, log out, unfollow. You have that choice. You know, we don't have to put those things in front of our eyes. We can choose to put them away and focus on things that are right and good. So I hope that these points that I've talked about have been helpful and encouraging to you. I love for other women to feel like they can take control and do something for themselves, because we can easily fall into like this victim role of, okay, woe is me, I'm here, I'm stuck here. But actually we have a lot of choice, and we can't necessarily control our circumstances, but we can control our reaction to those circumstances. So I encourage you to take control, to start focusing on good things and right things, to know your worth and to follow your purpose, and understand that that purpose can be found in the mundane, that the things that you're doing right now will have a big impact on the future, and you are important and you're doing an important job. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to what I have said today, and I really hope it spoke to your heart. Bye.
I hope you guys love that and that really resonated with you, and that, you know, you feel just a little bit more purposeful for having listened to that. But truly what leads us to purpose, what leads us to action, what leads us to, getting to where we want to be is doing something. So what I want to know from you is, what one little thing are you going to do because of what you've heard today? Let me know over on Instagram at Moms Who Know Podcast. And be sure to go to the website, momswhoknowpodcast.com/summit, and check out the full summit so that you can listen and continue to learn and to go deep on finding your purpose. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next week on Moms Who Know.